Negotiation is often misunderstood. Many people think negotiation is about winning. They think it's about forcing the other party to concede or about having the strongest position in the room. In reality, the most effective negotiations rarely produce winners and losers. Instead, they produce alignment. For executives, negotiation is not simply a transactional skill. It is a strategic leadership capability. Executives negotiate constantly, whether they are allocating resources, managing stakeholders, resolving conflicts, or shaping organizational direction. The art of negotiation is therefore not just about persuasion. It is about influence, preparation, and the understanding of the motivations of others. Today, I'd like to discuss three components that I believe are the most influential in executive negotiation. They are preparation and leverage, understanding interests rather than positions, and building outcomes that create mutual value. The most powerful negotiation tactic does not happen during the negotiation. It happens before it. One of the most important concepts in negotiation theory is BATNA, the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Your BATNA defines your leverage. If you have strong alternatives, you negotiate from strength. If you do not, the other party controls the outcome. Executives who negotiate effectively invest significant time in preparation. They analyze their alternatives, they anticipate the other party's priorities, and define their walkaway point. In many cases, preparation determines the outcome before the negotiation even begins. One of the most influential insights from the Harvard Negotiation Framework is the distinction between positions and interests. A position is what someone says that they want. An interest is why they want it. When negotiations stall, it is often because both parties are defending positions. Executives who understand interests can move the conversation forward and identify solutions that satisfy the underlying needs of both parties. When leaders focus on the interests instead of the positions, negotiation shifts from confrontation toward collaboration. Another misconception about negotiation is that it's purely competitive. While some negotiations are distributive, many executive negotiations are integrative, meaning that they create value. Executives who negotiate effectively expand the conversation beyond a single outcome and look for ways to align incentives and objectives. Instead of asking, "How do I get the most out of this agreement?" effective leaders ask, "How do we design an outcome that benefits both parties?" The goal is not simply agreement. The goal is durable agreement. Another important concept in negotiation is the zone of possible agreement, often referred to as ZOPA. The ZOPA represents the range where both parties' acceptable outcomes overlap. If a buyer's maximum acceptable price is higher than the seller's minimum acceptable price, there is a zone where the agreement is possible. Effective negotiators focus on identifying and expanding this zone rather than simply defending rigid positions. Executives who understand the ZOPA approach they negotiate strategically. They analyze where the interests align, where flexibility exists, and where compromise can create mutually beneficial outcomes. When leaders recognize that the zone of possible agreement, negotiation becomes less about conflict and more about identifying the range where collaboration can create great value. At the executive level, negotiation takes an additional dimension. Executives are rarely negotiating for themselves. They are negotiating for an organization. This means negotiation must balance strategy, relationships, and long-term organizational credibility. Leaders who negotiate effectively understand that reputation matters. Executives who consistently negotiate fairly and transparently build trust. That trust becomes a strategic advantage in future negotiations. Conversely, leaders who pursue short-term wins at the expense of a relationship often damage long-term influence. Negotiation is not simply a business skill, it is a leadership skill. Executives negotiate every day through decisions, conversations, and strategic planning. The most effective leaders prepare carefully, they focus on interests rather than positions, and they pursue solutions that create a lasting value. In the end, the art of negotiation is not about winning. It is about alignment.